Well, I think we're ready to get started for the deep dive this morning. And I just want to say welcome to everybody joining. Glad to have you on. Great way to start the week, talking about what's the most important topics in real estate and really taking a deeper dive on those topics. And that's what we're going to do this morning. So if you saw the video that went out, we're going to be talking about a blog that we published last month, not last year, it was last month, but last week on Tuesday around the unicorn years, all about kind of comparisons year over year and being equipped to make those those analogies with people as they hear things coming out. So that's going to be what we're going to do on the deep dive for the next few minutes. If you're joining, as always, let us know where you're watching from. I'm going to follow along here and let us know where you're at. So great to always see people from all over the country that join the deep dive, that start their week, that want to be the educator on topics that matter the most so that they can lead clients forward effectively right now. You know, there are a lot of questions in the market. What's the second half of the year going to bring? What is that going to look like? And we want to have the answers as they come up. Tom, I see you there in the Tri-Cities. Gustavo, see you there. Great to have you on. Jessica, see you there on 30A. A great place to be this morning. So glad to have everybody joining. Palm Springs there. Francisco, see you. Grateful to have you on. You know, I'll say this. If there is somebody that you know that needs to be on the deep dive, maybe somebody that you're working with or whatever, tag them in this video. Tag them and get them on here today because we want to get the message out. To be the educated agent, you have to have the facts. You have to be informed. And that's what we do on the deep dive. Linda, see you there. Great to see you. Michelle, see you. Great to have you. Randy and Sherry. Sherry in Atlanta. Cindy, see you there. So good to have so many people joining this morning. You know, we were off last week for the holiday, and certainly as we get started, this is the first deep dive for June, and glad to have everybody on. So I'm going to jump in and share my slides, share my screen for you. You know, if you're a KCM member, you can go in and download these slides, use those in things that you're building, talking, content that you're building, talking with people, having those on your phone, having those on an iPad as you go throughout your day. So let's get started here. I'll share my slides, and we're talking about the unicorn years. And this comes from a blog that we published last Tuesday, the title being Today's Real Estate Market, the Unicorns Have Galloped Off. And really the premise behind that is comparing year over year anything in real estate can be difficult, and it's certainly difficult right now given what we experienced the last couple of years. And we've used this term unicorn, and I want to just spend just a minute on the term because this is the definition that I would give you. A unicorn being something that is greatly desired but difficult or impossible to find. You know, think about that as the definition of the past couple of years in real estate. Something is greatly desired. We saw a lot of things happen that were really good in the business, but it's been impossible to find. You know, waves of buyers entering the market, mortgage rates falling to historical lows, you know, forbearance really eliminating foreclosures. And ultimately, you know, this market that's not been like something we've seen before. And through that blog have put this idea out there and labeled it as the unicorn years. And it's our new term for the housing market during the pandemic years. And it's really an attempt to disconnect the benefits of the strong housing market over the last couple of years from 2020 to 2022 from the pain that so many, you know, endured and experienced during that time. You know, I think this idea of the unicorn years as you know, headlines come out that we need to be equipped to show people the difference. And I'll give you one example just as we get started here. You take a topic like home price appreciation. Well, if we look at this in sort of the lens of the unicorn years, what do we see? Well, in 2017, 2018, 2019, the last three normal years in real estate, 7%, 5%, 4% appreciation in real estate. And then we jump up during 2020 and 2021 to 11% annually, 18% annually as recorded by Freddie Mac, and then, you know, coming down last year in 2022 to 5% appreciation. Something very, you know, I'll call it normal, but very, very different from the unicorn years. Why is this so important right now. And this would be the point that I would underscore as you think about this, as you go through the next few minutes and understand this topic. If you haven't read the blog, I'd go back and read that blog and share that blog, because here's the bottom line. Now more than ever, headlines do more to terrify than clarify what's happening out in the market. And I think our job is going to be to bring clarity to what's being said about real estate. And go back to prices. Everybody said prices were going to crash, and even today's KCM blog is on that topic. And we're not seeing that for a number of different reasons. But when people read the headlines and they sort of get terrified and they don't understand what's going on and maybe even believe that to be true, it's our job to clarify the truth. But if we keep on this track of the unicorn years, even showing traffic shows us the same in the unicorn years, 2017, 2018, 2019, even 2020. As we went through the unicorn years, mortgage rates dropped, the meaning of home changed for people, and folks jumped into the market. They said, we're going to do it now, and traffic or demand rose in 2021, 2022. Even in 2023, this is the index for April. Over the last 7 years, we see we're well above where we were prior to the unicorn years, but below that actual time. Important for people to understand. Let's take a topic like foreclosures. If we apply this way of thinking, foreclosures, fewer foreclosures during the unicorn years. All about forbearance and forbearance working for people, helping people get through the crisis of the pandemic. And we saw so many fewer foreclosures, and now those are starting to come back up as we've come out of the forbearance time, the moratorium time on foreclosures, and we've seen more, especially in 2022, but not what we saw prior to the pandemic. Very, very important as people see headlines, as they see things saying foreclosures are on the rise, and here we go again, being educated on this topic, being educated to be able to communicate. Those were years that were very different, primarily because of legislation, because of things that were put in place to limit the number of foreclosures, and it worked, right? It helped people get from one side to the other of the financial crisis they were facing. If you followed KCM in the deep dive, we've talked about forbearance and foreclosure and those coming out extensively. You're well prepared and you understand that topic. But if we take this continue on this journey, median days on the market, another fact right now where things were selling so fast during 2021, 2022. This is a look at May of each year from Realtor.com. And again, maybe 55, 51, 52 in the years leading up to the unicorn year, 68 days on the market average in 2020. We sunk down. Things were selling very, very quickly during 2021 and 2022, and we've started to rise, but again, not to the volume or the the time frame that we saw prior to the unicorn years. So you start to see this trend as articles come out or headlines come out comparing this year to last year. We can give the context to those that are asking questions or maybe even concerned about that or have questions about that. Inventory of homes for sale. Well, we know across the country, we don't have the number of homes for sale that we need across the country in this market for the number of people that want to buy. And while inventory is increasing, you see that over the unicorn years, still not at a rate that we would want to see comparatively to each of the Mays over the last, how many years is this? 7 years. So coming into the last couple of years, saw right at 1 million homes for sale there, and just over half of that right now. So this, I think in any market, there isn't probably somebody that says, hey, we have plenty of inventory where we're at, but this is a great visual way to show people the difference between these years as they are compared to in the median. Certainly over the summer, we're going to see more and more comparisons made, likely unfavorable. If we convert that to months of inventory, we drop down during the unicorn years to a couple of months of inventory in 2021 and 2022. And while we've come up, again, still not where we want to be or not where we need to be in inventory across the country. You can go throughout all of these numbers, but here's the important piece. Our ability to be able to convey this is the difference. Remember, I started off saying year over year in any market is hard to compare, but in this market, it is very, very hard to compare. If we look at a measure of demand, pending listings, and again, this is May of each year, you see pending listings very much in line with the years prior to the unicorn years. But as volume shot up during 2021 and 2022, it's come down. So comparisons to say, hey, pending listings are down year over year would be accurate, but they're very much in line to where we had been prior to those years. I'll give you one more before we hit a couple of things here, and it's existing home sales. As of May, in our 4.2, almost 4.3 million pace for existing home sales, you can see what that was coming into the unicorn years. We know there were so many homes sold over the last couple of years as people jumped into the market. They took advantage of low rates. The meaning of home changed. They said, we want to get in, and they did it. And as we make the comparisons, even certainly over last year, we see that down, but maybe more in line with 2020, not as ferocious as what maybe they would see in a headline. Because here's the bottom line right now. Over the summer, in no doubt over the year, there will be very unsettling headlines around the housing market this year. And most will come from inappropriate comparisons to the unicorn years, right? If you're comparing something to something that is very unique and maybe comes along once in a lifetime, then you're going to see that big difference. But our job is to have the perspective and have the advice for those that we're working with to be able to give them the comparison and the perspective about what's happening in the market. One thing that I want to give you before I bring Whitney up and see if there are any questions is we have a treat for you, and I want you to do this. If you're a KCM member, if you're not a KCM member, you can start a free trial this week and get it. This Friday, the June monthly market report comes out. And I'm going to tell you, put a note on your calendar right now. Go into your calendar around lunchtime, and go check in your KCM member area to grab the monthly market report. Download that, listen to it, grab the slides. You're going to want to grab that because we've got a special treat there for you. I'm not going to talk any further about it, but I want you to go in there and get the monthly market report when it's posted this Friday. I think being the knowledge broker, being the expert on the topics that matter the most is what we have to do right now, and really to guide clients effectively over the summer. So Whitney, I'm going to pause for a second and see if we have any questions that are coming up.
Hi, Dave. Good morning. We have a few questions. The first one comes from Linda Crane. She wants to know what number of foreclosures is considered normal or okay.
Well, that's a great question, Linda. I mean, if you go back and you look at foreclosures coming out of 2008 and the crisis, we kind of shot up and have come down each year. I don't know that there's a normal number, but if I'm going to go back to that slide, I think normal here, if you look at the average of the 3 years leading up to the unicorn years, it'd be around 600,000 foreclosures a year, if you take that as normal. Now, certainly, we're talking about a topic that impacts people, and we don't want to see anybody go into foreclosure, but it's a fact in our business. And what we've seen in the last year is about half of that, a little over half of that in foreclosures in this country. I don't know if that answers the question, but that would be if you were to take a normal, I would take the average going in. Any other questions there?
Yes, a follow-up question from Linda Crane. Is 6 months of inventory still considered balance? She heard that it may be changing to less.
There's certainly a debate. Is it 4 months? Is it 6 months? My answer to that would be people are going to debate that, but the fact is we don't have enough homes for sale right now for the number of people that want to buy them. I think if you look back historically over the last several years, we've been in the 4-month range, going back prior to the unicorn years that we're talking about. And I don't know that that's an argument that's going to be settled today, but it certainly is one that people talk about. But bottom line is we need more available inventory.
Okay, and then we have a question from Francisco.
Yeah.
He wants to know what needs to happen for rates to come down sooner.
Oh, that's a great question. I think right now there needs to be less fear in the market. And I think that's where our job comes in, Francisco, is to help people understand what's happening in real estate. I think the spread between the 10-year Treasury and the 30-year fixed mortgage rate is at a high spread. If you go back and you've followed KCM, historically that's been about 1.7%. It's well over that right now. I think when there's uncertainty in the market around inflation and all the other things, and we can help lower uncertainty by being the knowledge broker. I think that helps deliver more impact than we sometimes give credit to relative to that. But most forecasters, as we go throughout the year, agree and sort of forecast that interest rates will begin to come down as we see more certainty with inflation and other things that are happening out in the market.
Okay, and then the final question from Mike Fowler. He says, in my market, Pleasanton, California, we have not seen more than 1.3 months of inventory since 2018. 1.3 months of inventory is a current 5-year high in our market. Do you think low inventory will be an issue in the foreseeable future until more housing can be built?
For sure, I think so. And we're in a low inventory scenario across the country right now. And the projection, we just talked about mortgage rates. As mortgage rates come down, we should expect more activity. So I think we will continue to see that. Now, the question is, how do we bring more inventory into the market? I think that's on us, and that is our job right now. I'm going to go back to the monthly market report. On Friday, download that. Get the perspective you need, because I believe our job in helping to free up inventory is one of the things we can control right now. But certainly to the question, I think more new builds, more product coming to market is going to be the answer over the coming years. But certainly as rates fall, I think we will see more people coming back into the market, which will be even further constricted inventory. Good. Well, great to be on the deep dive this morning talking about the unicorn years. Listen, a couple of things as we go. One, if you haven't read the blog last week, go in and read that blog, share it, get the word out. Download these slides, have them ready so that we can show people the difference between the market today and what we've seen over the last couple of years. And as always, we're grateful for everybody that joins the deep dive. We'll be back again next Monday to start the week off talking about the most important topics in real estate. Take care.